Former Michigan State wide receiver Keon Coleman just concluded a visit with Ole Miss. A few days ago, he had a visit with Florida State as well. Keon Coleman hosts several offers, over 60 to be exact, by different college football teams. I think there were multiple teams where he could contribute, he could go to and have success, and I want to talk about some of those today, just briefly. Keon Coleman was one of the nation's best wide receivers from a standpoint of possession, size, and potential in 2022. At 6'4", 210 pounds, he would be a fantastic addition anywhere, especially as a sophomore where he still has years to develop. Now, it's pretty clear to me that he went into the transfer portal to see who would give him the biggest amount of NIL money. And probably after that, it would be where he could be developed and where he could get significant attention and significant targets to maximize his draft capital. He had 58 receptions, 798 yards, 7 receiving touchdowns, and averaged 13.8 yards per reception in 2022. He led Michigan State in receiving yards and was their best wide receiver. Losing him along with Jaden Reed was a big blow to Michigan State. Now, transferring from one school to another sometimes nets you success and more attention. Other times, in the case of Jermaine Burton, I would argue that it backfires. But here we are. Keon Coleman is a great wide receiver. Again, 6'4", 210 pounds, limitless potential, big possession wide receiver. He could fit in anywhere. He visited Mississippi, Ole Miss, and Florida State, and he would fit well in their wide receiver room. Florida State starts Johnny Wilson, Darian Williamson, and Winston Wright Jr. That's their projected depth chart at wide receiver. I think Johnny Wilson, from what I know, is their best wide receiver. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Keon Coleman would start in that lineup and get significant playing time and significant targets from Jordan Travis in an offense that will greatly improve under Mike Norvell, since Florida State's number 1 in returning production. At Ole Miss, they already have 2 incoming transfers. Chris Marshall and Trey Harris currently occupy the wide receiver X and Z positions on the depth chart, and they're projected to be the starting players. Jordan Watkins was a incoming transfer, but not in this class. He's currently projected to be the starting slot receiver. So I think you'd have more competition in Ole Miss's wide receiver room, and seeing that it's Jackson Dart at quarterback and Quinshon Judkins at running back, I don't exactly think Keon Coleman would be getting the targets and development that he would be needing to maximize his NFL potential, but maybe they're offering him a ton of NIL money and that's what he just cares about and he's nearsighted, which is possible. Then there's 2 other interesting teams. I know for sure one of them offered Keon Coleman, and that's Notre Dame. I don't know if Alabama offered him, but part of me would be pretty sure they did, because their wide receiver room is not competent. Let's start with Alabama. Jermaine Burton, one of the few transfers. He transferred from Georgia to Alabama, and even though he had a career high in receiving yards this season, I think it backfired. He did not look good in the postgame after Tennessee when he tried to hit a fan, and to be honest with you, I think that he just would have done himself better to wait a year when Todd Monken's offense was in full throttle in 2022 and Stetson Bennett passed for an additional 1,000 yards. Jermaine Burton could have been a 1,000-yard wide receiver. Very easily could. He's currently, along with Ja'Cory Brooks and Malik Benson, an incoming transfer projected to be the starting 3 on Alabama's offense at wide receiver. Alabama is moving to more of a pro-style offense. I anticipate they're going to run the ball with Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams. Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, Tyler Buckner, those are the guys currently competing for the quarterback battle. None of them, I think, are elite passers, though they do have the potential to all be great passers. But Tyler Buckner and Jalen Milroe have a running capability, so I don't know if he'll get the targets necessarily, but Alabama has a reputation with wide receivers. even if their wide receiver core last year was far from elite. They have that reputation. They have a good developmental coach there, and he would get playing time. There's no doubt about that. And when Jermaine Burton and Ja'Cory Brooks and Malik Benson leave, I think after their eligibility runs out, Keon Coleman would have one extra year where he could be the number one guy in that wide receiver room. So I think it would more so be wise of Alabama to target him than for him to go to Alabama, because Alabama really they need a possession wide receiver. They need a wide receiver, period. Amen. The more wide receivers they can get to make the job easier on the quarterback, the better, in my opinion. Like, Alabama really needs skill players outside of running back. At quarterback, they have questions. Wide receiver, they have questions. That's not good, especially when last year they had one of Alabama's worst offensive lines in history. So that would be a place that I think he could go to, have success. It's a logical fit for both Keon Coleman and for Nick Saban. I think it's a similar thing at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, compared to all the schools like Alabama, Florida State, Mississippi, they all have at least one good wide receiver. Now, Alabama's, I think, whether it's Ja'Cory Brooks, Malik Benson, Jermaine Burton, we won't know. Their wide receiver room isn't great, but it's above average, maybe good. They have at least one good wide receiver. Notre Dame has no good wide receivers. They do not. They have like an average at best wide receiver room. They had to convert Chris Tyree, a former running back, to a slot wide receiver. They don't have a good wide receiver room. They don't have depth. They don't have anything. And they have Sam Hartman just sitting there. They have Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. You give him Keon Coleman, that changes the tune of Notre Dame's offense. It doesn't make up for the fact that Gerard Parker is their offensive coordinator. It does not do that, but it helps tremendously with the on-field talent, and it gives Sam Hartman a reputable wide receiver to pass to, because Keon Coleman is better than Deion Colzie, Tobias Merriweather, and Jaden Thomas. He's miles better than any of those guys. He's phenomenal. Keon Coleman, I know, also has an offer from Michigan. I think Michigan's wide receiver room I think Michigan has a better wide receiver room than all the schools I just talked about, and it's a rival. Michigan, from an NIL standpoint, is more likely to, pay big time if you're already on the roster, which I imagine is a similar story at like Georgia or Alabama, or these bigger schools that have had more success. That seems to be the thing that goes on. Ohio State's wide receiver room is already deep. He has tons of offers, but I look at those 4 schools, 2 of them since he visited them, and the other 2 because Notre Dame has a quarterback, and you want to since he's only there for 1 year, you want to maximize what he can do, and bringing in Keon Coleman will do that. And Alabama, Keon Coleman is also a long-term guy. I said long-term help Notre Dame. It would long-term help Alabama to have a steady, physical, NFL-size wide receiver, because Keon Coleman, no matter where he goes, I think will be selected in the draft. It just depends on how high. He has the frame. He's proven himself on the field. He's a great wide receiver. I have no clue where he's going to go. There are so many places where he could go and have an immediate impact, and there are so many places that could develop him and just that could give him what he wants. So I don't know where he goes. Maybe he even goes to Miami, Florida, since they love to pay players. Or maybe Texas A&M, though I think they have a competent wide receiver room. So I don't know where he goes, but he's a great wide receiver. I think these 4 schools, 2 that he visited and 2 that I just think from a schematic and a needs-based perspective, it benefits both parties. I wouldn't surprise me if he ended up at Alabama, or especially Notre Dame. They really need a wide receiver 1, and they can provide that to him. So that's just my thoughts on Keon Coleman, really, where he's going. And again, had nearly 800 receiving yards last year, 7 receiving touchdowns. Phenomenal wide receiver. Thank you for listening to this short segment. Please comment down below where you think Keon Coleman will transfer to. Subscribe to the channel and like this video as well. Thank you guys for watching. And if you're listening via Spotify, please follow the channel. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.